All right, so set of notes for today is about electron configurations. As always, either take your own notes and do summary and questions, or use the notes I've provided and do summary and questions. So last week, we introduced the quantum model and we talked about different energy levels. And so if we imagine that we have a hydrogen atom with one electron in it, the orbitals, any orbitals on the same energy level, have the same energy. That is, the word degenerate is what we call them. As the number of electrons increases, though, there's some repulsion between them, and that increases the potential energy in those orbitals. So therefore, if we have atoms that have many electrons in them, orbitals on the same energy level are no longer degenerate. In fact, it depends upon what sublevel they belong to. So as a result, then, you can go ahead and sort of give an address, an energy address, to any electron that is part of an atom. When we do that, we use a format called electron configurations. All right? Electron configuration consists of all of the following information for each electron that's part of an atom. It gives us a number that tells us the energy level that the electron is in, a letter that tells us the type of orbital or the sublevel, and a superscript number on the top that tells us the number of electrons in those orbitals. All right, so electron configurations will tell us the potential locations of all the electrons for a particular element based on its energy levels and its sublevels. So as we do this, what we find is that electrons will fill up sublevels in an atom beginning with the lowest energy level and building up. This is called the Aufbau principle. Aufbau is a German word that means build up in some way, shape, or form. The amount of energy in a sublevel, though, is determined by both the energy level and the sublevel. This causes overlap between the energy levels at higher energy levels. Let me show you what I mean a little bit more. Okay, so obviously, we might understand that in general, first energy level has less energy than second energy level, which has less energy than third, which has less energy than fourth. But S's have less energy than P's, which have less energy than D's, which have less energy than F's. Why? Because as you fill in electrons in a P or a D or an F, you've got a whole bunch of electrons that are now very close to one another and they repel each other. And so as a result of that, you end up with more energy in each one of those sublevels than you do in the others. So when we start mapping this out, we actually find out that the first energy level only has an S sublevel. The second energy level has an S and a P. The third energy level has an S, a P, and a D. And the fourth energy level and everyone after it has an S, a P, a D, and an F. All right, so we start filling those from lowest energy to highest energy. We start aufbauing them. All right, and so 1S is lowest in energy, then 2S, then 2P, then 3S, then 3P. And this is where things start to get a little bit weirder. So it turns out that the 4S sublevel has less energy than the 3D. Even though 4 is a higher energy level than 3, all of the repulsion in the D sublevel creates more energy or a higher energy than just having a single pair of electrons in the S sublevel. Okay. So we go ahead and we put the electrons in the 4S before we put them in the 3D. Another way of thinking about this is imagine that all of these orbitals are seats in a theater. And we could imagine that this is the third energy level, and this is the fourth energy level. And if I asked you what seats would you like them in 3D or would you like them in 4S? My guess is most people would choose 4S. You're closer to the stage. Well, same thing happens over here. The electrons go into 4S first. It's just a better seat. It has a lower energy. So if we take all that information and put it together then, and write the electron configuration of an atom like gallium, which has 31 electrons, we can start writing in the electron configuration format. So we start with 1s, and we know that s's hold 2. Then we go to 2s, those hold 2 electrons. We go to 2p, that holds 6 electrons. Then the next electrons go in 3s, which holds 2 electrons. Then 3p, which holds 6. Then 4s, which holds 2. Followed by 3d, which holds 10. That gets us to 30 electrons. So what happens to that one last electron? Well, after 3d, we go to 4p. And while the p can hold 6 electrons total, we only have 1 to stick in there, so that's what we do. Now we can also represent the location of atoms in one other notation way, and that's using orbital diagrams. Orbital diagrams work similarly. So imagine we've got lithium. Lithium's electron configuration would be 1s2, 2s1. Okay? So in an orbital diagram, each box represents an orbital. So s's have 1 box, p's have 3 boxes, d's have 5 boxes, f's have 7 boxes. Half arrows inside them represent the electrons. As we learned from Pauli exclusion principle, each orbital can only have 2 electrons, and they have opposite spin. So we do 1 up, 1 down. All right. When we do that, we encounter something called Hund's rule. And basically what Hund's rule says is that for degenerate orbitals, or in other words, orbitals that have the same energy level and the same sublevel, the lowest energy is attained when the number of electrons with the same spin is maximized. In other words, what we're going to do is as we start putting electrons into these 2p orbitals here, we're going to make sure each orbital gets 1 electron before any of them start getting 2, like you see down there. Okay, so 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, and then we could come back and we could start adding a second electron into each one of those afterward. All right. So this whole setup of the quantum model and electron configurations leads us directly to the structure of our modern periodic table. If you look at our modern periodic table, you'll notice that we have a block over here on the left of our periodic table that is 2 electrons wide, just like s orbitals hold 2 electrons. You'll notice one over here on the far right that has 6 wide, just like p orbitals hold 6 electrons. You'll notice that we have a d that are 10 wide because d sublevels hold 10 electrons. And then they've actually taken the f and they've pulled it out and put it down below here so it fits better on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. But if it was where it belonged, it would go right in that slot right there. So as we'll come back to in a little bit, this makes it very easy for us to write electron configurations without even having to memorize where the overlaps are. If we simply remember that the first energy level has an S, the second energy level has an S and a P, D's come in during the third energy level, and F's come in during the fourth energy level, we can go ahead and just follow the periodic table across in order to be able to write electron configurations. Now, there's one other way to write electron configurations, and that's noble gas core configurations. So if I do gallium again, and we look at where gallium is on the periodic table, we'll notice again that it's in that 4th row down, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go backward from gallium all the way back to the previous noble gas, the most recent noble gas that we processed. And if you follow that on your periodic table and you go all the way back, you go through that 4th row up to the end of the 3rd row, and you'll see that the previous noble gas was argon. Okay, so you can go ahead and you can do a noble gas core, which basically says all of the electrons up through argon, and then just fill in after that. So it would be 4s2, 3d10, 4p1. Okay, so that's another valid way of doing electron configurations if they ask you for the noble gas configuration. All right. The other thing that gets kind of tricky is if we have ions, we have to remember to add or subtract electrons from the highest energy level. All right? So, in other words, if we go ahead and we look at something like gallium, when we start taking electrons away from gallium, gallium plus 1 is going to be Ar 4s2 3d10 because we took away from the highest energy level. But if we go to gallium plus 2, we would go Ar 4s1 3d10, again because we're taking away from the highest energy level. Gallium plus 3 would be simply Ar 3d10. Okay. And then we could start taking them out of this third energy level. Okay, so when you add in, you follow Aufbau, always going from increasing by energy. And when we subtract, when we remove electrons, we go ahead and we take them out based on the highest energy level. So for some hints for AP, memorize where the orbital blocks and rows are, right? 2 wide for S, 6 wide for P, 10 wide for D, 14 wide for F. Remember that S's start with 1s, P's start with 2s, D's start with 3s, and F's start in 4. And you are allowed to write the electron configuration in order of either increasing principal quantum number or in order of filling. So that means for gallium, for AP purposes, you can actually write 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 3d10, 4s2, 4p1. And that's acceptable. I don't like that though. I like ordering and writing them out in the order that they fill. So just like everything else in chemistry, there are some exceptions. And those irregularities occur when there's enough electrons to half fill S and D orbitals on a given row. So it doesn't start happening until we start getting into the D orbitals down here. Some of the most famous ones, copper. Okay, if we wrote copper as we would expect it to be, its configuration would be Ar 4s2 3d9. Okay. However, when we look, we actually find that the electron configuration of copper is 4s1 3d10. And that occurs because 4s and 3d are really close in energy. The anomalies also happen in F blocks as well. And what happens here is it actually turns out that it's lower in energy if an orbital is half filled or full versus any other partial number. Okay, so the fact that 9 is here, you actually end up with less energy in this if you split it so that this is half filled and this is full. Okay, same thing with chromium. Right? Chromium would normally be Cr 4s2 3d4. Okay, but again, by splitting them in half, we get a half full and a half full rather than a full and a partial. Okay, always preferable to have halves and fulls within the same sublevel there. Okay, you need to know that anomalies happen and you need to know why they happen, but you don't actually have to know the anomalies themselves. So no one's ever going to ask you to memorize which ones are anomalies. On the AP exam, they might give you an example where something is half full and ask you why it is, but they won't ever ask you what is the electron configuration for copper.